Good morning, everybody. We have sound, excellent. I do apologise for the delay in kicking off the conference, but clearly you've had enough to talk about, so that's been good. Just a few little technical hitches. That's quite bright. But I'm delighted to be able to start off this morning our Engage conference, staff conference, 2 days of opportunities to get involved, to talk to people, to find out what's going on across the university. And I really, really do hope that you find the couple of days worthwhile. If you're able to engage with the full 2 days, fantastic. If you're dipping in and out, then that's absolutely fine as well. We're just very, very grateful that you've given up your time to join us today and tomorrow. Oh, and there's more stuff coming up now. Okay. So just a little bit of housekeeping before I kick off. First of all, if you haven't registered but you've snuck in, then please could you register? So go and see someone on the conference desk in B07. The reason why we do ask people to register and to sign in for sessions is not because we're kind of policing this, it's because it means we can add it to your CPD record in HR. So we're trying to capture what people are getting involved in. So it's really, really helpful to us if you can do that. Can I thank all of the presenters who are taking part of the next 2 days, and delegates, if you've signed up for a session, please have the courtesy of turning up to it, because, oh dear, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Help. I'm just going to keep doing this and hope that it's okay. So please turn up to the things that you've signed up to. That'd be great. You've been given 2 pieces of paper, I think, as you came in. One is a kind of leaflet around some staff development opportunities that I will talk you through towards the end of my talk. The other one is a sort of self-reflection sheet, just something you might find helpful. It's not compulsory, just to capture your thoughts and ideas over the next couple of days. Sometimes we walk away from these things, don't we, and we think, oh, something really great happened in that session, but I can't quite remember what it was. So jot it down, or it might be that you want to jot down that you want to talk to someone else about something, so please do use that. In B07, the base room, we have a poster exhibition, so please go and look at that. There's tea and coffee on tap as well. And we also have, do we have the knowledge exchange set up in there? So we have a knowledge exchange board. This is where if you have something you need or something you'd like to give away in terms of knowledge stuff, then please engage with that board. This is about trying to link people up across the university. So it might be that you're involved in a project, or you want some advice on something, or you've got an idea, you're not quite sure what to do with it. This is a space where you might be able to link up with someone somewhere in the university who you've never even met before. So how exciting would that be? So do have a look at that. And finally, on the housekeeping side, do engage with Twitter. The hashtag is #Engage2017, so please do engage with that. Okay, moving on. First of all, before I launch into the presentation, just want to do a few shout-out congratulations. We've had lots of people this year going through fellowship of the Higher Education Academy, senior fellowship as well, and I just want to congratulate everybody who's engaged with that, and associate fellowship. I'm not going to give a long list of names, you know who you are, but well done and thank you for engaging with that. We've also had a couple of quite special achievements. We've had a couple of Queen's Award nurses over the past year, and also I will just mention Dixon, who's just sat here, who's just achieved his Chartered Science Teacher, which is fantastic, and that will also mean that he can also achieve senior fellowship of the Higher Education Academy through a pilot that the Higher Education Academy are doing. So if you've been involved with those fellowships this year, then well done, and there'll be plenty more opportunities to get involved with that as we go forwards over the coming year. So, to the nub of the matter, change is a constant, isn't it? We're all involved in change. There's lots of stuff going on, but I hope that we can see change as not a threat but an opportunity. And these 2 days are about exploring opportunities, presenting opportunities and inviting you to be involved with those opportunities going forwards. And I know that Maria will be talking more about the kind of external challenges and opportunities that we face as a university as well in her address at 12 noon. But really, I just want to spend a couple of minutes going through our kind of learning and teaching context before I talk about the strategy in particular, and just point out some of the particular challenges that we face as a university in terms of things like our student profile, our sort of employability challenges, regional challenges, etc. So first of all, you may or may not have seen some of these statistics before. Some of them may be a bit of a surprise to you, but this encapsulates who our students are. I won't read through them, you can kind of see there, but a couple of things to kind of pick out. We are way above the UK average in terms of young full-time entrants who are from state schools. We are way above the UK average and fourth highest in the UK for participation from low participation neighbourhoods. We have a significant population of mature students, and a significant proportion of our students are in receipt of a disabled students allowance. Now, I know that many of you kind of knew that, but you may not have known the actual board statistics. And we need to understand the characteristics of our learners who choose to join us. This helps to fulfill our responsibilities as academic and professional services colleagues working together so that we can provide the right opportunities for our students to engage, to flourish and to succeed in their studies. And I'll be talking a lot more about that as we go through this morning. Student retention, we've had a really big push on student retention this year, significant improvements, but we still do fall behind our benchmarks. That may be a surprise to you, you may have thought we were doing a bit better, but there's still a lot to do. So we'll be continuing to look at how we support our students to make sure that they stay with us, they progress through their course, they exit with a really great award at the end there. Student satisfaction. We saw a significant improvement last year in the NSS in 2016. We have dropped slightly this year, although there is a little bit of a health warning. I'm sure you're all aware that the NSS questions changed during 2017, so we're not supposed to compare year on year, even though HEFQ are comparing year on year, but never mind. So I was pleased with how well we did, given the differences in questions. And actually, when you dug beneath the surface and looked across the different questions, we performed very well in terms of not only our Welsh competitors, but also in some subject areas across the UK. Some really fantastic results for some individual subject areas, and you know who you are because you've had those results. If you're not sure, then talk to your associate head or your head of school. They should have talked to you about this by now. But there are still some areas which need significant improvement, and I do mean significant improvement. So we've still got a little bit of an inconsistent spread in terms of what students are saying about our courses. We do have an NSS working group that is co-chaired by myself and Travis, the SU president, and we'll be looking at school NSS action plans and monitoring that over the coming year. One thing just to mention, you may or may not be aware in terms of the Teaching Excellence Framework that the weighting of the NSS is going to be probably diminished in coming years. So that's not great for us in terms of how well we do in TEF and how well we do in NSS. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on. I'm just going to put my watch there so I can keep an eye on time. Okay, moving on, employability. We have seen a drop in employability metrics over the past 3 years, but again, there are variations between subjects. Some great areas where we have students going into good graduate level jobs. Engineering, a bit of a shout out there, reported as fourth in the UK for achieving added value in relation to graduate earnings. In the LEO data, that's the longitudinal employment outcomes data. But when you look at the statistics, if you look across there, we do okay in employment and further study, but we've really got to focus on graduate level employment and further study. So this is getting our students into the jobs that really do need their degree level qualification and their professional qualification. So still a bit of work to do there, and again, a big focus in terms of the Teaching Excellence Framework. So that's a little bit about context, but really we also need to look beyond, we need to look further, and we need to look deeper. I've put the old iceberg sort of picture up there. You know, what you see on the surface is only a kind of snapshot, isn't it, of actually what's going on across the university, but actually beyond the university, the region, and also nationwide and globally. And we need to give ourselves a little bit of space to do that. I'm hoping that that's part of what we'll be doing over the next couple of days. And one of the things I'm quite interested in are the challenges that are being faced by global society and how that should influence what we do as educators. So we understand a bit about the sorts of students who are coming to us and the characteristics that they bring, but what do we understand about, you know, how society is developing and what the cultural, societal, economic, political, physical, environmental, all those sorts of challenges are bringing, and how they should influence what we do as teachers within a university. Well, I think these are some of the challenges that I see for education globally. First of all, we're educating now for jobs that either are changing rapidly, someone is employed for a job that 18 months later may look very, very different, or that don't yet exist. And you've heard this before. You know, we have students coming in 3 or 5 years down the line. They may be turned out from university, and actually the job that they thought they might want to go into initially may not exist in its form by then. So we've really got to be smart about this in terms of making sure that we prepare our students for that very, very difficult environment. We're educating for more flexible approaches to work. I'm sure you've heard about the gig economy and all the kind of controversies around that and how it kind of works. You know, a lot of the young people I sort of know, you know, sort of certainly around me, around my family, my friends, you know, they don't think really about longitudinal careers. They will start something, and if they don't fancy it, they'll go and do something else. And they're quite comfortable with that. That would terrify me. It would absolutely terrify me. But we have young people coming through for whom this is a natural attitude and natural practice. So cross-disciplinarity is very, very important. Digitally enabled workforce, professions, etc. And I've said here professions that are not restricted by technological myopia. I really like this phrase. This has come from a book that I've been reading around from Susskind around the professions. They say that technological myopia is the tendency to underestimate the potential of tomorrow's applications by evaluating them in terms of today's enabling technologies. We don't know what technology is going to look like in a few years' time. And it's the inability of the skeptic, because of the shortcomings of current technology, like I have found this morning, to concede that future systems may be radically more powerful than those of today. So we have to put aside the difficulties we might have with technology now and actually accept that in 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years' time, it will be very different. Now, at this point, I was going to show you a very exciting video, but we've been unable to do that this morning. So what I will do is I'll make sure that when this is published, because we're actually recording this, I'll put the link in. It's a video from the World Economic Forum, and it's about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And this is talking about the fact that we now have bioscience and technology sort of merging into a new era for sort of technological development. And the reason I wanted to show you that video is not because of the technology per se, because I know that we have people around the university in computing and engineering who are well onto this. They know all about this. Go and talk to them if you want to find out more. I'm more interested in the final point I put on this slide there, because this brings all sorts of societal challenges. We have to put people and shared values first, and this is, I think, what we're about as educators. In a society where we will have integrated within what we do, artificial intelligence, the ethics around that, people handling technology in very, very different ways, we have to make sure that we turn out graduates who are smart enough to handle that, who can make good decisions around how they handle that sort of complex world going forwards. and who I would hope would work quite hard to make sure that they are contributing to creating a more equal society, because those sorts of technologies have the potential to iron out inequality. But it's all in the fantastic video, which I can't show you. So I'm very sorry about that. There it is. Nice still there. One of the things that does come through from the work that the World Economic Forum have done, and this I think is a really important point for us, are the changing priorities in terms of skills going forwards. So just have a quick look at those lists for a moment. I'll just pause and let you have a look through them. So this list sees complex problem solving still as top of the list in a few years' time, but critical thinking has moved to second place, and the skill that's jumped from 10th place to third place is creativity. And this is where getting ourselves talking cross-discipline is really, really important. We need creative thinkers, in our sciences, in our social sciences, not just in Regent Street or in the creative industries building. New to the list, well, if you may have spotted it, so new to the list is emotional intelligence, which many of us know has been around for a while, but it's now actually starting to be foregrounded in terms of skills that employers want in the workplace. And cognitive flexibility, if you see those, just snuck in at number 10. So this, in my view, this is not so much about subject knowledge, but it's more about empathy. It's about the capability to use emotional information to guide thinking and behaviour. And it's about conceptual thinking and the mental ability to switch between thinking about different concepts, that sort of, mental agility, if you like, and to think about multiple concepts simultaneously. And for me, that has a huge, huge impact on how we teach, because we are not looking now at, in my view, and I'm very happy to have discussions about this afterwards, in my view, about a kind of linear approach to sort of discharging a discipline. It's far more complex about that than that in terms of weaving these sort of skills in. And I think the interdisciplinary aspect is really, really important. On the clip, there's a really good section, it's really good, where they show a medic in a lab who's doing some sort of fancy bioscience type stuff, but they're actually extracting data, so they have to have incredible data handling skills. They're then able to plug that data into a computer, which is linked to a 3D printer, which then prints out the part they need to put back into someone's body to sort them out, basically. I think that is absolutely incredible. So it's a bioscientist who actually needs great data handling skills and those sort of high-end computing IT skills as well. Okay, so that's all by way of context. Let's get to the nub of the thing. So I said that today we'll be launching our new strategy for supporting student learning and achievement. And this strategy is a response to the context that I've outlined, particularly the context I've outlined in terms of our student characteristics, which I think are really important. We need to understand the people who choose to come to us, but also a response to the broader challenges that we face, as I've just sort of briefly outlined. And I know you're aware of these broader challenges, and I do encourage you to go away and think a little bit more about that. So we want to harness the best that new technologies can offer, whilst also retaining a focus on education for responsible citizenship, for cognitive flexibility, for problem solving, for social responsibility, etc., 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 etc. And I know that Maria will be talking a little bit later on as well about the idea of the university having a civic mission and sort of civic engagement, which I think is all tied up with this. I'm sure you've seen that graphic before up there, so we're still really promoting our kind of applied focus, the work-related learning, practice-informed teaching, industry-relevant research, underpinned by that kind of personal support, which is really, really important. So what will it do? Well, these are the aims and the strategy. It is informed by key seminal texts by educators and researchers such as Graham Gibbs, Carol Dweck, the psychologist, Paul Ramsden, who's a very big higher education researcher and teacher, previous leader of the Higher Education Academy, Black and William, who are the assessment gurus, as I'm sure many of you know, and many, many others. They are all referenced within the strategy. So this is a fairly detailed document, and I'd encourage you to find it on Glyndwr. We'll send links out as well. Find it on Glyndwr and have a good read through, because I've tried to make sure that everything that I've put in there is backed up with very, very clear evidence that's research-based and practice-based. So this is about informing, it's about driving developments, it's about supporting alignment of those things we've just been talking about, influencing a range of other core strategies, such as Campus 2025, for example, which we'll be finding out more about in the next couple of days, and hopefully will kind of set us on a good path in terms of teaching excellence and quality. But the strategy is underpinned by a couple of key principles, and for me these are really, really important. What are the actual foundations of it? And the first one is that learning capacity can be transformed, grown, and enhanced through external intervention. So this is not predicated on a view of fixed ability. It's predicated on a view of totally changeable and malleable capability and capacity and learning capacity. If you want to read more about that, then look at the work by people like Carol Dweck, look at the work done in schools through the Learning Without Limits project, and again, that's all referenced within the strategy. And this is all about the 3 bullet points that I've put up there. Motivated and supported engagement with learning opportunities will result in more effective learning and an optimistic growth mindset, rather than a limited notion of limited capacity. So for the student, this then becomes, if you like, a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they think that they are fixed in terms of what they can achieve, then they will often work to that and that's it. If they believe that the sky's the limit, then we can achieve far more with our students. There's an apocryphal story of a teacher in school who was given the bottom set of a subject or whatever it might be. But she told that set that actually they were the top set, and they actually then outperformed the top set because there was that positive reinforcement of what they could actually do. Now, in my view, if we get this right, it's hard, but if we get this right, in theory, this leads to good rates of retention, high levels of achievement, and then increased likelihood of entering graduate employment. But do, have a look at this stuff. Read through it, find out what you think about it. The second principle is about an integrated and holistic view of pedagogy and how that impacts upon student learning. The research and the work that's been done, particularly by people like Graham Gibbs, says that what best predicts educational gain is measures of educational process. It's what we do as educators and institutions with our resources. Now, we may not have much in the way of resources, but we can still make very good decisions about what we actually do with them, and that's what makes an impact. So things like class size, the level of student engagement and effort, who is teaching, and also, quite significantly, lots of stuff around assessment and feedback, which is why we're having a big focus on assessment and feedback over the coming year. But I want to emphasise I'm back again. But I want to emphasise that it's these things together are what counts. That's really, really important. It's not each aspect taken in isolation. It's everything together, and what we do with these things together is what's really, really important. So let me unpack that a little bit more, because this is challenging stuff. And I know this cuts to the very heart of what we're actually doing in the classroom and what you're having to cope with day to day in terms of the resources that you're dealing with. So class size, teaching approach, the quality of independent learning are all interlinked. And if you look at what I've just put on that slide there, I'm sorry it's very wordy, but there are some kind of key statements here that I wanted to get across. So the number of class contact hours has very little to do with educational quality, independent of what happens in those hours. So can you see there that, there may be fewer contact hours, but if it's really high quality, if there's some close contact, if you're with a great qualified inspirational teacher, then there will be higher impact. So we need to kind of make decisions around that in terms of how we get the balance right. The example I've given here is problem-based pedagogies. You'll know, I'm sure, that medical education shifted quite a few years ago from big traditional lectures to problem-based approaches and characterised by smaller number of smaller interactive classes. So contact, in theory, was probably actually cut, but the quality of contact time was actually a lot better. What matters, this bit in bold is really important, what matters is the quantity and quality of student engagement generated by the particular uses to which class contact is put. So our input as educators then has to have an impact on how the student then takes forward their own independent learning. And that, I think, is the crux of the matter. Really, really hard. And I'm not standing here saying I've got all the answers, because you're all the experts in the classroom. But I just encourage you to reflect on how we are encouraging students to actually be inspired to make even more effort outside of their classes. Now, there are challenges here for our context. If we go back to our student characteristics, we have high proportions of mature learners. We have high proportions of part-time learners. We have high proportions of students who come from families who've never engaged with higher education before. If the kind of logical outcome of this is that we're expecting more independent student engagement, that's really hard for a student who's got a part-time job or caring responsibilities or kids to look after or whatever it might be. So we need to think that through and work out how it's going to work for our sort of context. Let me move on to teaching. I do think teaching qualifications are important. You know that we're having a big push around recognition, professional recognition, through the Higher Education Academy. And the key thing there is that this is recognition of what you're already doing. We have some great teaching and learning practice going on, so let's get recognised for it. I talk a lot about great teaching, and probably people are sick to death of me banging on about it. And you know in your head what great teaching is. Students think they know what great teaching is, but it probably varies from student to student. But I like this quote from Jim Collins. If we're thinking about great teaching, the key thing is we're never ever going to get there. This is a process of, an iterative process of kind of reinvention, reflection, really working hard at thinking about how we're doing. So we have to guard against complacency there. And then moving on to formative assessment and feedback. The intervention in schools that's had more impact on students' learning than any other involves improving formative assessment, and this is now filtered through into higher education. This isn't a new thing at all. The work by Black and William in the 90s, I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. Very, very influential, and that's been applied into HE as well. But the link is between the effect that formative assessment has upon the student's approach to learning, and whether their approach is a deep approach or a surface approach. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with sort of deep and surface approaches to learning, and it's quite a complicated concept. But in essence, a surface approach could be characterised as remembering an example. So you're going through a case study in class or something, and the student remembers the kind of nuts and bolts of an example. A deep approach goes further than that, and the student would be demonstrating understanding of key and fundamental and influential principles. So this is where we come back to the fact that maybe, content, yes, it's important for context, but we need to get beyond delivering content and actually looking at some of these, cognitively challenging and life-changing principles within our teaching and learning. The research says that students tend to adopt a deep approach when they experience good feedback and assignments, and when they have a clear sense of the goals of the course and the standards to be achieved. So can you see how this also links back into the sort of malleable mindset work that we talked about earlier? So for us, this is about high expectations, the level of academic challenge that we're bringing to our students. All those things kind of work together. It's important to understand that students they're not suddenly surface students or deep students. They don't turn up on day one and say, yeah, I'm a deep student. I'm a bit of a surface student. It's about our interventions drawing that approach out. And if that's something that you're more interested in, I'd encourage you to read about it. Paul Ramsden wrote a lot about it. There's lots of stuff out there. Talk about it with your colleagues. How do you get our students to the stage where they are thinking and interacting and engaging at that deeper level? Okay, so this is the strategy in a nutshell. As I say, you can get the whole thing on Glyndwr, but I've kind of done a one-page, very colourful sort of summary so that you've got a bit of an at-a-glance thing of where we're going. Some of you saw this before at the spring conference. There's been a few minor changes to this, but really, in essence, we've stuck with the kind of key strands that I think people were quite happy about. So we have strands around the curriculum, around great teaching, as I've just been talking about, around innovative assessment, personalised support, and students as partners. And I just want to kind of highlight another couple of areas. I've already talked about assessment, and hopefully many of you will be coming into the Nick Whitehead Theatre at 10:15. We'll be running a workshop around transforming assessment in preparation for our year of assessment, because that's our enhancement theme coming up over the coming year. And I'll explain later on why, in a bit more detail, why we're going with that. I've talked a bit about great teaching and how important I think that is. We all know that we need to get the curriculum right, and when you start to look as well at the kind of global context in terms of the technological innovations and the impact that has on humanity, so don't focus too much on the technology, but focus on the impact on humanity and society, then perhaps we need to just raise our game a little bit in terms of thinking about our curriculum content. Personalised support is something we do incredibly well. Every student I talk to or stop, ambassadors at Open Day say, this is why they came, this is what they love about Glyndwr, and this is what we want to continue to develop and support. And we'll be looking at improving things like accessibility of information, as well as looking again at the personal tutor scheme. And then students as partners. There are two bits to this, really. There's something around helping our students to achieve that deeper level of engagement with their studies through all of these things, but also through working together. That's another part of the research evidence. We're keen to develop some peer mentoring schemes, and we've already got some of that underway. Katie Brute, one of our master's students, is developing that with the Adore project. Is it Adore? Yes, it is the Adore project. And we'll be rolling that out over this coming term and over the coming year. But we're also keen to engage our students more with our sort of quality and improvement processes. We've done a good job of that over the past year, but we just want to raise our game a little bit more, and I'm working with the SU on that. The principle of high challenge and high support I put there at the bottom. That kind of encapsulates all of those principles that I talked about earlier on. We need to challenge our students so that we really push them to achieve the very best they possibly can. And I know you're doing that, but let's do it even more. But we know that because we have students with certain characteristics, through no fault of their own, postcodes or family situations or whatever it might be, they do need additional support. But we need to get the balance right in terms of weaning them off that support as well appropriately as they move through level 4 and into level 5 and into level 6. So they really feel confident, independent learners as they go into their second and third and final years. So that's all very well, Claire. But how are you going to help us do this? Well, one of the leaflet that you were handed this morning as you came in hopefully looked a bit like that. Supporting you, supporting our students. We put together a programme of support and development for learning and teaching over the coming year. So you might want to grab that leaflet, have a quick look at it now, if you've got one in front of you. Just want to take you through a few things. So this isn't about me saying, here's a shiny new strategy, go out and make it so. This is about us working together to make sure that our students get the best possible deal. And I want to make sure that you feel supported in doing this. And this is for professional services, academic services, across the board. So you'll see on the leaflet there, we've got our twice-a-year staff conferences now. They're pretty much fixed in the calendar. We will be running this 2-day event, as far as I'm concerned, every year, if Anne Scar-Jones can bear it. Thank you, Anne, for all your work, by the way. And then our Springboard Learning and Teaching Conference as well for a day. And we've got the dates for that set up. We're introducing Learning Lunches, a monthly event. Bring your lunch, come and have a chat, talk to other people, and we'll be focusing those particularly around assessment over the coming year. But a whole range of stuff around assessment. We'll be looking at e-assessment, we'll be having demos, we'll be doing, we'll be solving problems. It's just a forum to come along, engage with the academic communities, professional community, and hopefully learn a bit more. Sue Horder will be continuing to run her HEA Fellowship Writing Workshop, so if you've not got fellowship or you want to think about senior fellowship or associate fellowship, talk to Sue. She's just at the back there. She'll be in the next session as well. And again, they are coming up monthly, and we'll make sure that all of these dates are publicised in advance through the new campus talk as well. SHAPE, supporting a holistic approach to programme enhancement. This is a new monthly event where we're encouraging programme teams who are looking at developing new programmes to come along and actually discuss their ideas with myself, with heads of school, with heads of professional services. This is to try to get round the walk of shame that I know a lot of you have to do with your IPPFs around the university, where you kind of hang on to your IPPF and you're desperately trying to get signatures from everybody around the university. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, a few people are nodding. So this is about an event which is open, which is transparent, which is more about a dialogue, which I think we need more of. Delta funding. So this is around supporting a small number of small learning and teaching assessment projects. I'll be sending out details of this within the next, hopefully, week, 10 days. We don't have a lot of money, but I've squirreled a bit of money away, but don't tell David Elcock. He's just sat here. This will be, maybe a couple of £100 just to help you and a team, maybe to go and visit somewhere, maybe to go to an event, maybe to get a piece of equipment, maybe to do something within the university that will push our learning and teaching agenda onwards. So I hope that people will be interested in that and will apply for that. We've got a very interesting project going on with the Higher Education Academy, Development for New and Aspiring External Examiners. We're part of a pilot scheme. I think we're the only university in Wales who's managed to get in on this, where we are looking to train around 25 to 30 of you in external examining. So this isn't the external examiners who are coming here, it is you as external examiners going elsewhere. So if you're external examiners already, and this is for academic staff, or if you aspire to be an external examiner, then go and talk to the registry desk, because we have a training event coming up in November and there's a piece of paper there where you can sign up for it. Free to you, and with some good external trainers coming in as well as internal training going on over the year. We got a very good engagement from, where did I see Anne and Alicia? They're around, I'm sure. Yes, oh, there they are, right in the front. Support with technology enhanced learning. They are at your beck and call. Now you're going to be inundated and you're not going to thank me for it. So please do talk to them. If you need help with getting to grips with the new look Moodle, which I think is fantastic, or you want help with other things, Panopto, whatever it might be, then do get in touch with them. They're very happy to come and talk to you, to talk to teams, to run events, and they'll be involved with our learning lunches as well. And I'm very grateful for the work that Anne and Alicia have done there. Our open house for researchers will be continuing. Do talk to Stuart and the research team out there if you want to find out a bit more about that. Quality matters. Lynn and the team and Louise will be putting on various sessions just to keep us updated with what's going on in terms of all sorts of different quality issues. But again, if you're new or you want to do something with your team, get in touch with them and they will very, very happily come and run a session with you if there's something you're not sure about. And then finally, academic development team associates. This is, in my view, a fantastic opportunity. It does involve, if you're interested in this, a bit of work and commitment on your side, so it's not for the faint-hearted. You may be aware at the moment we have an academic development team which is led by myself and involves the associate heads of school or academic leads for learning and teaching in each of the schools. So it's a small team of 5 people. And behind the scenes, we've been beavering away, making links into the TEL team, doing some work around peer observation. Sue's been supporting people with fellowships, so various learning and teaching projects going on. We want to expand that team, and we want to get together a kind of bit of a network, really, of associates who will help us to further develop some of these learning and teaching projects. And this is open not only to academic staff, but to professional staff as well, because there is a huge amount to offer, I know, from the professional services. We will be emailing all staff in the next few days with more details of that. There is an application form, so there is a little bit of a hoop to jump through. But if you're really, really interested in that, then talk to me over the next couple of days, look out for the information, and I'd really, really commend that to you as an opportunity to influence change and to be involved in some of the developments that are going to be going on over the coming year. So I hope that that reassures you and excites you in terms of some of the development opportunities that are coming up, and reassures you that we've tried to think this through. We don't want to leave people kind of hanging. There's a lot of stuff to do here. We want to support you, and I'd encourage you to engage with the opportunities on offer. So I'm going to stop now, just run over by a couple of minutes. Coming up next, in the Nick Whitehead Theatre at around 10:15, so you've got a chance to go and grab a coffee or get some water or do whatever you need to do. We're going to be launching our Transforming Assessment project. Jane Richardson and Sue Horder are heading this up. I really commend this to you. We've had 80 or 90 people signed up for the session, but if you haven't signed up, sneak in and just make sure someone knows that you've snuck in, and we'll capture your details. We are having a big, big push on our assessment approaches and our assessment policy over the coming year. So it's really important that we have good representation from across the university in this session. So that's it from me. I hope you found that helpful. The strategy is on Glyndwr under the Academic Board's papers and strategies. But if you want to talk to me about anything that I've mentioned this morning, then please do grab me at any point over the next couple of days or couple of weeks. And please do have a look beyond the strategy at some of the references that are in there and some of the kind of ideas and principles that I've invited you to consider and engage with as we go forwards. Thank you very much indeed, and enjoy your conference. Thank you.